Okay guys, single leg RDL. Now, for this exercise, a few things I want to point out. Ideally, you would be using a kettlebell for this. And the reason is because kettlebells, first off, their center of gravity is in the middle. It just feels more stable, easier to control. It just makes more sense. So if you have access to kettlebells, definitely choose a kettlebell. Another thing is, I do like touching the ground. And when using a dumbbell, if you try and attempt to touch the ground, it's a little bit more range than you actually need. Because as you guys know, RDLs usually go mid-shin. And if you try and touch the ground, it's like, it's a bit much. And technically that would already count as like doing it as in a deficit, right? If you were standing on a step and you're trying to go over. And not only the fact that most people don't necessarily have that range, that's just like technically not necessarily the right way to do it. Okay, so even though I will say this, I do touch the ground when I do this, but I don't necessarily coach to do this because it doesn't feel right for most people. Okay, so the fact of having a kettlebell allows for you to reach that mid shin and touch the ground at the same time. I hope that makes sense. So imagine if a kettlebell has, it's around this big and it has a handle. If you were to touch the ground when you come down, right? Whoops, not so stable. If you were to touch the ground, sorry. If you were to touch the ground, you're coming exactly to the right height and it would sit right there. So it would be pretty perfect. But let's focus on the dumbbell because this is what I have, and most likely most of you are probably going to end up using a dumbbell anyway. So before we even pick it up, you're going to balance on your stance leg. Always start with your weaker leg because if you start with your stronger leg, it's going to be very hard to match up the reps. So you're balancing on the one leg. As soon as you do this, lock that hip in place. All right, now from here, you're going to hinge. Now, the only reason that your leg is going back behind you is not because you're actively taking it. You're not swinging it back. It's locked in place and it's going back because it's one line, all right? And it's moving with your body, all right? Now, another point. Don't do what I just did. Focus on a point in front of you, preferably on the ground, that isn't moving. Don't try to look at yourself in the mirror. It's just going to make for a very unstable setup. Okay, so start from the top, just like every other RDL. Pick up the dumbbell from the ground, carefully and mindfully. You're going to balance on that one leg and lock the hip in place. And you are going down and up. Oops. Down and up. Yeah, I'm very not balanced today, so there's that. I think the reason I like touching the ground every time is just it keeps me more stable. So just so you know kind of what it looks like, I touch the ground and I come up. All right? And that is that.